336 million of that money to start paying down the debt. In fact, 250 million was left. We refinanced 200 million. The MPP, the current government, used the balance of the 200 million to pay off the balance of that loan. On October 4th, 2017, it wasn't mentioned, but that was what was done. That is why we don't have that bond on our books. The one that is left on it is the 200 million. And then we had projected that, with Jubilee, Sankofa, and Tenfield, we were going to be paying down our debt up to 70% of every sovereign bond that we bought. It's in handing over notes. So we had a plan. So those were the concrete things. Another example which I gave you, which the reason I'm saying that, I mentioned it. When we had COVID, the first money we took, 250 million, which we took, before we went for the IMF 1 billion, right, was our own money. And it was money we put in place when oil prices were high under, from Jubilee, much of it. I'm not saying that the current administration did not add. But if you consider that we set aside 515 to take off, debt, and we had balance, we left, some 200 to 300 million in the stabilization fund with one oil field. If we were continuing those policies as we were doing, probably we would have had 750 million with two additional oil fields, Tenfield and Sankofa. And that is how countries don't go to the IMF. Maybe at this particular time, not earlier, we would have been going to the fund. Why? Because, as we know, the Ukraine and the Russian war are making things really tough. It is at this point that countries go to the IMF. But I'm saying as far as COVID and others were concerned, maybe we would have had 550 million, 600 million, who knows, even more, from 3 oil fields, not one.
Okay.
And if you do that, then even if you go to the fund, you are going to borrow 200 million. You are not going to borrow 1 billion. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay, so
that's why I'm saying that probably we wouldn't even be there. But let's assume that we were going to the fund, we would have done exactly what we did. We would have had our own homegrown policy in place, including all the elements that I've mentioned, and then we will be talking to the fund. There's no probability. What I'm saying is that we wouldn't be talking about 3 billion.
Okay.
That I'm sure.
Enti ususu se babia ye bedru ya ansana afi na ye se enkitangudi ase no aye later na akati.
As they say, better late than never. Yes, late, but better late than never. Because what would have been the result? We would likely have defaulted. Because if you look at the IMF report, the Article 71, Article 4, done in 2021, it shows that as at last year, we were using 129% of the revenue we were collecting, which means that all the 100% was going, and we had to borrow additional 29 or 30% to pay for compensation. Sorry, to pay for, no compensation, to pay for interest on loan and the repayment of old loan. Now we all know, and we have been discussing this, on your program and everywhere, that we were looking at it in another way, that compensation and interest is taking all the revenue. And therefore we have to borrow to pay old debt. Now, we couldn't go to the bond market to borrow to refinance. Last year, we couldn't go for 2 billion. This year, we may not go because we are now in C ratings category. If you go and borrow, you borrow at a very high cost, right? So what I'm saying is that if you don't go to the external market to borrow, if the foreigners who come for your bond have gone and they are not in our market again, and then you start depending on your domestic market. And yet when you go to the domestic market, madam, you know it very well that the government was not getting all the money from the domestic market. The outcome is that with money not coming from anywhere, we would have defaulted.
Okay.
Because you can't pay compensation, you can't pay wages and the rest. And because after you pay wages and you pay the interest, there was no money left, for to pay the principal.
Okay.
So we're in a dire situation, and that is what would have happened.
Bebe na edi ensusuye base ekuo anase team ebekosia IMF ni kitawudie no kra asase no anka ebeya finance minister entina nchen mema no enka the team ne ho enko sansa obema nyoma kra koye complicated e dia mo man no wo fo asa ko no so
under convention and in all the programs that we have done, when you finish negotiating with the IMF, you send them a letter which is called the letter LOI, letter of intent, your intention. And in that letter, which is supported by something called the Memorandum of Economic and Financial Policies, you state exactly what you want to do to take you out of the situation. It is signed by the Minister for Finance and the Governor. So it is the Minister for Finance who is going to sign, so long as he's at post. No question about that. If for some reason, he's not leading the negotiations, but the negotiations have started, the discussions have started, and there's no sign that he's resigning, then it would have been the prerogative of the president to inform the IMF that somebody else. You remember we had it in our own constitution when the finance minister fell ill and couldn't present the budget. The president informed Parliament, that the Honorable Chairman Sabonso, will be presenting the budget on behalf. That is because the budget is presented to Parliament on the authority of the president. Okay. And we are going to the IMF on the authority of the president. And later the agreement would go to Parliament. In our case, the elements of all the agreements were in our homegrown policy, which we took to Parliament. So the question, I'm afraid, is mute at this stage, so long as the Minister for Finance remains at post.
Sir, a combatant penny for to Safrel, a sir, you're a set a canty mono, ya, a lead negotiation, no. Why already, sir, Ubetiamo, which of course are Ebanoa, Nnawotwi by no Sapinoso.
Oh, my boss, my current and former boss, so long as once a boss, always a boss, has said that there should be an open invitation, like we did in Century. So that's the context in which we are expecting. And then if such an invitation is thrown, frankly, the policies that I will be going to talk about, where His Excellency President Mahama's policies, they were the NDC's policies. So with all due respect, it would be easier if the NDC were invited to join in the conversations. Then, we who are the officials and we will be going to parrot, the policies, like some of what I'm talking about and the rest. But in the absence of that, we've been contributing, so our views are known. We've been writing, and our views are known. So we are Ghanaians, and I think that if there is an open consensus and the party is invited, then we would certainly participate, just as we invited the MPP. Okay. When we were going to Century. Yeah.
Drew Brebi say ya conditions are IMF de bano. Muna makobia ba. Na etumi be affect aban na ode o mine econo ni policies ni bi. Meka policies are say ye share NAPCO, ye share free senior high school, student allowances. Betumi affect no. E wo kwan bi so na conditions e be ba no.
Madam, the question is, do we believe that if we were doing our own homegrown policy, some of those policies would be affected? Let me give you 2 examples.
Okay.
We are all in this country. Quite recently, the head teachers, principals, said that they were not getting their money from the Minister of Finance, and that if the money did not come, they would ask the students to pay fees. In other words, we are all in this country. When the contractors, most of whom are not foreign, they are our own mothers in particular, because most of them are women, contractors for strategic stock, we are in this country. When they said that they are not being paid, and as we speak, some of them have stopped because maybe they don't have the finances to refinance. They don't. Their bank account is probably in red, and they said we want to be paid so that we continue feeding the students. Is this something we want to continue? And do we have to wait for the IMF to come and tell us that the program is suffering and something must be done about it? And let me give you a practical example so that it doesn't look like I'm saying something which we didn't do. We were going to do 200 e-schools under the same free SHS. If you remember, 200 e-schools. Right in the middle of the campaigning, if you remember, crude oil prices fell. We did the budget with $99 per barrel. The price fell below $30. Then it's hovered around $33 to $35. If we were lucky, close to $40. It never crossed $50 before we left office. It crossed $50 in 2017. What did we say? We told the public. President Mahama told the public, we can't do 200 schools. We even said, if we are going to do 150, to do the progressively fee-free fee-free education, that's the free SHS, of which we added the progressively. We were going to do the remaining, we were going to hit maybe 120, 150, only in 2017, 2018, when 10 field and Sankofa comes on stream. And we know that, we can be able to manage the budget efficiently. As a result, we said we were finishing only 50 or so schools. The evidence is there. Okay. Most of the uncompleted schools are in the bush today. I mean, that is pragmatism. You'll be very pragmatic. And we did. Another example, the second one, or probably the third, is ESLA, which I mentioned already. We didn't wait for the fund to tell us that, the energy sector was in crisis, the banking sector was in crisis because our energy companies had borrowed from the banks to keep, because of subsidy, the budget didn't have money, so we're not paying subsidy, right? So I think that in all sincerity, let us ask ourselves the questions, let us put reforms on the table so that it doesn't look like it's always the IMF. Of course, the IMF will come and say, yeah, we have seen this program, we've seen this your initiative, but we suggest you do something else. For example, another quick example. When we had money in the sinking fund, we had a discussion with them under the program, and they said, maybe consider taking parts of the sinking fund to reduce the deficit. Okay. But we said, the deficit is past. It is consumption. And in 3 years, in fact, by 2015, it's 2 years, we have to pay $750 million. We borrowed part of the World Bank guaranteed bond to refinance. So we tell them that is a more difficult thing for us in future. They agreed, and we kept the sinking fund, which, as I said, because we kept it, even the current government took $200 million, of that money, to pay off the final balance of the first sovereign bond. So let us ask ourselves the question first. And let us propose something. That was the essence of Senchi. So by the time we came out of Senchi, we had to put us on the floor. And in fact, our initial discussions in Accra, was chaired by one of my former bosses again, Dr. Nnawotwi, when I was a public servant. Right, so Dr. Nnawotwi, who had experience, more experience than I, he chaired. Yeah.
Now, Seth, share, said you will come in the na obi beka sene e wo sa ban nan kasampo etu anamo na sana IMF condition no abam obi beka se aban susu ye ne se ehese odi egu akwan so no e ya de odi support de oni bie the poor no in society no e no de support te bia no na ama no e drag the feet kakra ese o bia omo ebe withdraw unyini se kwan pana na onam so sempo ofa ne se enioma e na entoto mu se ye betumi agina na so ana.
The IMF is not the old IMF, which is associated with. In the 2021 Article 4, the IMF is saying, and later I'll look for it, the IMF is saying that the COVID money we got from them and from other sources was not properly targeted to benefit the poor. It's in the report. That is the IMF telling you. So, and when we did the program, the IMF protected the portion of the money that went to LIB. The IMF understood that public servants had to be paid. They didn't say we shouldn't pay the single spine, right? But the IMF said, maybe your wages are high. And already our wages are high. We are taking off NAPO. So they were saying maybe your wages are high. What else can you do? We said we are changing the focus. We want to build infrastructure to create jobs. So, madam, how many jobs do you think Terminal 3 created? How many jobs do you think the expansion of the thermal port created? How many jobs do you think will be sustained or expanded? Kijitia was there already, so we can't say that we are creating all the jobs. But you have an edifice that is there, so something more. How many jobs would we have created with the cocoa roads? All the things that we did. E-schools that we built, hospitals. So you change that. So what we told them is that we want to change the emphasis. Yes, we agree with you. But we also want to change the emphasis and use, infrastructure to create jobs. And those are more permanent and sustainable. Of course, if thermal port expands and there's more business, more airlines come to, the capacity of the public service will also have to expand, right? So we were not excluding the public, the civil service or the public service as the current government sought to tell Ghanaians and everything. Yes.
Finally, Seth, say on a scale of 1 to 10, say you free SHS, some government policies no, the chances are a bit to me survive the conditions of the IMF no. Over my percentage and as a skill no, a bit never say
I teach. It's difficult to score, and
please do I beg you.
Even sometimes your students will be. What I would say is that we should take attempt all question approach. We are in a situation where every line, every revenue line, every expenditure, revenue has to increase, not yearly, because it's already in the budget. Frankly, it's already in the budget. We should take every line and look at it and ask ourselves whether we can finance it. Because the IMF is already saying in the document I'm talking about, which they agreed with government, that it will be difficult to borrow, for example, for the cares.
The chances of government policies surviving the conditions of IMF scale in the region 1 to 10.
We survived in the past. We survived in the past. Didn't we get out of all? Yes, I understand people saying that, yeah, we do well, then we relapse and whatever. So we should rather promise ourselves that if we leave this one, just as we wanted to leave and we were doing the homegrown policy, let us agree that as a nation, like the Asian Tigers, like even some African countries like Kenya, doesn't take money upfront from the IMF. What they do is that they do what they call the policy support instrument, and that is what we were negotiating to do. So you try it on your own, and then when you get to a point where things are tough for you, with your citizens, then you go and get 200, you go and get 150 or something. That one, everybody does, every member of the IMF. As I said, even the advanced countries like Portugal, Ireland, Greece, and Spain, they jokingly call them the pigs, of the European Union. They went to the IMF. So that is what I would wish.
It's possible say
every expenditure line would have to be examined.
Yes. It's possible say we conditions any IMF negotiations in na abanish say be policies be or the buy ya na or targeted the poor no e be intact and cano ana.
We have to put it on the table and discuss with them. And they don't have to be, for example, free SHS. Mm-hmm. You can say free SHS is pro-poor. But the current finance minister was asking, by the grace of God, why shouldn't I pay my nephew's school fees, even if my children are finished school? He has a question, right? So those are the qualitative difference which we have to answer ourselves. Putting on every fee and paying the fees for lawyers, for judges, for, rich people in society, right? It is the poor. Now that we are unable to feed the kids, those rich people can load their chop boxes, as we call them, for their children in school. Okay. It's the same poor who are suffering now. So let's be targeted. That is what the IMF is saying. So yes, let us see, the programs that we have on board. and then we have done this, every time we go to the IMF program. Maybe you can say in the 80s and 90s, it was difficult for the fund to come, that was a reputation. But I just read the IMF is telling us things, about social protection.
Yeah, that's the near when you're my paying it.
You're most welcome.
And can I for to some for at the moment Ghana said tepe and I would say Edi and now what you do and I would see share Adom TV as I 80 or Asempa 94.7 FM so ye twan ho emra na me na mabedwafo adi na yemfa nkita hodie no ento aso mame ema wakwa babiem emra na Nnawotwi dwumadie eso na ebedwafo ameniomo ebebon komo madi kan introduce ora Kofi Ameyaw oye member edema MPP communication team no na lawyer Chumbema ono ye member NDC National Communication Team yanyomo na ebedi nkomo no council akwaba mama hyase ewo Kofi ho say IMF nkomo no over the week within the week no ye di mu nkomo bebre no a asembisa no ene say $3 billion no ya waban susu se ne sabeka no muji de se no na ebe the solution to oman no the economic crisis a ye wo mu na na
that's not going to be the solution to our problem but ebeboa in a great deal but answer na no mencha na mencha hwefo ni lawyer na yenda opani onyanyamfo ye se tekase ene na daje a oni ye bedi nkomo but answer na meyi one I think that ni nkomo na odi no mamen kan kakramfa menche bebre won the edi kan no I think that na dwinche ni bi wo ha ye somo ye at this point baby a yedru no ye won somo na o se ye de eboa oman no ni ye free tibia ye wo mu no tibia ye wo mu ni nya bia na ye mampani na adodan kwa Akufo-Addo na o hwehwe se ye bekom na me gindi se Ghana for now amoto abama 2016 and 2020 they expected say sa tibia ye wo mu sisi na ho kira ekoso ewo man no ebeba abeto ye. So at this point, said the COVID by ye nyina ye boaboa ye ho so ye mutimi yi ye ho free COVID ne aban hye odi go apem ye egu akwam ye timi tan chi no. I think we also in another crisis ye here timem for some babe supporting ye akoye. That notwithstanding, there's other issues or kan ya I think say ohono menene ya adwena enye ubisa na asem bi na emede. Think or ye finance minister enka Edi na obeye and o can say call your finance minister ki yimju be bia yeju
ade
oboa I sharply disagree. Remember he was a finance minister when we went to the IMF in April 2015. Indeed, when he was a finance minister we didn't have any global challenge, no pandemic against here, no COVID in here. In fact, answer no be kasan or see the crisis again a woman no a crisis we are seeing for now many countries are going through 2015, or the IMF, not many countries were not in crisis. And Ghana is part of the global economic activities. Yenya Island, because okay, Ghana and Kwanatwe. Then he made mention of the fact that your problems. Say Doomso, and I like his honesty. He's a good man. He's very honest. I see, the entire banking sector and core crisis was because of Doomso. He connected the two because the banks, the PDCs, free bank now are buying to me in Chomo Kenti. The banks almost collapsed as a result of that. He admitted that. So he cannot today tell us saying, "Kono manage the economy." I don't think you all the programs available to us. But I think that he's made a fantastic point that it should be a consensus, which we should agree. In fact, at the time. And he mentioned IMF 4, Mudins was Sudan in Article 4. And even in Article 4, the programs are there to acquire. I see the authorities of the strong view that the Ghana Cares program would deliver a stronger, more resilient and transformed economy. Now let me go into the question of IMF. Look, after the COVID, I am of the position, and not just me. In fact, we share budget statements. Submitted in November 2021, paragraph 4. No, you did two precopese COVID in a buy. I bet that say be yada paid. You know, there are certain things I need a year as for my COVID buy. I bet that need. And again, we share the same article for in the introductory remarks. The fund, admitted firsthand, say the executive directors agreed with the thrust of the staff appraisal. They noted that the pandemic had a severe impact on Ghana's economy, a slower growth, higher food prices, and increased poverty. So even the fund now we are going to know, COVID-19 buy Ghana year. Now, if you read further, Ebeka said Ghana was recovering to the extent that in 2020 we did 0.4% growth. In 2021, we did about 5.4%. And then the fund also projected, say, this year, 2022, we will be doing a 6.1 or so. So that means, say, COVID in the bind, we were recovering. Now, Yembisa say, I didn't think I would do baby I drew. I would do baby I drew because the beginning of 2022, and Russia and Ukraine war, a buy. So all the progress we were making out of the wounds of the COVID, Russia-Ukraine war, as I buy, yeah. Amasisi anu mama edin obi baby say na Russia for ni Ukraine ko mo ntokwa na Ghana de fa ho ben the tie ni say Russia and Ukraine omo ko anu omo supply oil 4% of the global demand, so that's extremely significant. And also the oil sector, especially the downstream petroleum sector now, say BBC cost wa affect air prices ni bebre ama oil no bo akoso yesu ni mo kromo say fuel bo petrol bo cost. It affects every product in this country. Okay. What I say. So with this coming out to me, entina ako here say, o man you be call IMF. Na yen ko drum pempen so e be di mpokra say e be tua adwumayefo ka. Nti we no IMF no encheche mu ne ehun kitahudie no. Baby adwun dia ya de sede na mese Ghana fo nyina. Say nye baby a ye person ke be duro no. Ba ye dru ho anisa. Ye dwen Ghana fo ho nti yen pride. And say, and Kame from the Yankee. It
doesn't mean say baby, I would you know. Say I was able to sign a more winner and could do pen so I yen to meet you my foka. Doesn't mean say I'm quite a fanka bedroom baby, not when yen to meet you. I want I could do.
It could me a draw. Let me tell you.
A drew away an anchor.
Mammy Chopoka. Abanya Nisika or Akonya Sam Miasaso. Barcode CCI is almost negligible. They kind of donor support. The amanone the bread and see and fan kind of budget negligible. Then two, a year internal taxes, revenue mobilization. Then the third one, a year financing loans. Sika your bob is now you realize that regarding taxes, we should tax to GDP a low. We are doing about 12%. The South region is doing about 20%. We share tax revenue no so sika about 60% of it goes into payment of a year your friend is saying salary I call for public sector workers.
Okay.
You are amortization and ABI debt. So you be so we go to the financial market and borrow. Now because of how poor COVID the economic structures now now if you go to the financial market, nobody is really but I just read to you what the fund said. And so as a result of the COVID and Russia, you asked a question. Let me conclude.
Yeah, the COVID
the whole question, let me answer. Let me finish.
But I think said you answered me because you said someone can you bedroom. I think it has been answered. Unless I person didn't chimuba. Someone quiet me fa. Ke bedroom the point I want to me change my forecast.
Because
you answered it.
Yeah, I've answered that question, but that's not enough. I have to explain to your viewers why. And can see what I can want me. Say the COVID year now, sika a bar monsem. Me come on some when you are buying some no. $2.4 billion. And then you say, Muslim requirement, $3 billion. It is $2.4 billion. I did COVID this a case, COVID man, which by a COVID a magana, I am more bonny idea into Moko IMF no. Says the Canadian idea, $2.4 billion. And $3 billion. The difference between the woman. My mama say any in fact, your sika cry bro $3 billion.
It's your way.
I buy your score here.
Maybe so.
Or do you put to Juma? I buy your sika or the trade my forecast. So are you saying say you put to Juma Kumwana? abanye ska di tua ya ka ya bosia ya brogu odada. So when the question is asked, says in every budget statement, if you've cared to know, in appendix now, we itemize every peso that is spent in this country, unless you don't want to know. So when the question is asked, says the money is in the budget. The budget is here. Go and read it. All the appendices, even how much we pay each worker, is recorded in the budget. Now you ask the question of Yenya 2.11 billion. And then the finance minister was in parliament. You didn't follow him. Why follow no? Why explaining what we use the money for?
And now the choir no. As a party person no. Would you be say na okay also be at
no, not as a party person.
Again na ebema the speaker of parliament no. As a swati committee say ye need receipt by receipt no mo nkoshem.
Fair. We presenting budgets. We itemize the idea. Now if they want further proof, and that's the job of parliament, check and balances. So the fact that Webisano is there a problem? There's no problem. That's the job. That's why we have the public account committee. They look at every issue. That's why we have the audit service. So the bottom line is that at the end of the day, nobody is saying, say, you acquire IMF for the 3 billion because that will be the panacea to all our problems. No. At this point, we need money to support our budget. That's why we are saying, say, you acquire IMF so that we have our balance of payments. To cushion it. So that we won't get to the point where things are so bad. Because now, job market now, you are not getting any loans.
Me da say. Chum. Medic came more kwaba. Bibi won ma beka na wako anim. On this IMF, anybody you drew, say take can be what you do, we take home.
All right, me da say and a parent come on me share. Yes, IMF ayako. Indeed, nka enfunso bia nse da ni hu se obako obi nchen akope nimdie anasemboa. But mpanin se ye pa be hu ntini ekyereboa. Ana asem bi so ase eni adanse a opasem na ho bi. Na da adanse. This IMF asem abaye abedin sirene ni ade just because of adibesi nra. So that's it. And no be a scene anything I must have you because in Kenya Brady can Ghana acquire. I think this is the 17th time also.
So you're successful the 17th.
Oh, all right. I mean, you're not successful Ghana once you have movements, so it's on record. Say Yako. So that's it. In Kenya Bonnet, any Brady can sorry. But Akoba say and now what team the Debray and Uncle Focus a brave because of a nursing bit. Many Encrofor when they were in opposition and the NDC was in government. Na be a bass said IMF Abatoho, and I said IMF is on the table now, say Ghana acquire IMF. Abano at the Ghana acquire IMF. They disagreed. And as buttressing their point of disagreement, and one most can sembere may do baby Nukana, a bed as IMF no quite a mum say, Sabronsamchan, we are not with him. What does it? Abe demon be a near pending cratia. Ukruma. Okowa. Some of their, some of their key people like Kasafa, and the kind of utterances. Gabi, for instance, cited is even a point of criminality. What do I say? I can quote and quote and quote so many people in some kind. At the end of the come at the candidates to say. IMF no. The last Sunday Adom Muhammad. He's on record. And the naba. Adan yes could be. But yes could be because ye who ye name said. And yes one a drago. So now you hear will be so boy and no yes money. Near swa it me to no more qua a unit. That is why in yes acquire baby. The amount that we have quoted, $3 billion. The possibility is that can cancer is can be very high. Because I want any charity foundation could do one here times to get the amount.
What can I say, a MPP na day or minor echo, and I said, Bibiano, you drew baby who say to me and your maswa and you call IMF.
No, the point I was trying to make is that going to IMF, no, I don't really have a problem with that.
Okay.
But And then Ghana for the run about it because of the utterances and the comments that people made when they were in opposition. Some quote two different people like you didn't quote the main issues. That is why I cited only about 1 or 2 people. And someone can fire me from in the past. And they said about Crown one God be so good. They are in power. Now what saying about Kona Womkas, Adia and almost Adia and Yafa. They are trying to justify their grounds, giving reasons upon reasons upon reasons. But when the end point, and say you are now with IMF. Our reasons of going there cannot be the same. Kofa 16 past 1 thing, and I said comparatively, obvious reasons are higher. Was it the same? It wasn't. You definitely get differences between first one, second one, third one, basis 16th one, and they call the 17th one. But did we demonize the past? From number 1, number 16 or 15, did we demonize them? I mean, it's so wrong to even have the intentions of IMF. At the end of the day, as they have now realized, Ghana has been part of IMF since 1950s, if I'm right.
1957.
What I say? Until IMF. And then you're pay and you're IMF. You remember that about 190 countries or so, and about almost 190 or 190 countries, and the form that institution. The biggest contributor to IMF is America. But their purpose is to guide you. Guide you what maybe I watch here. The entire because if you're not 3 billion, I don't know. I saw one but transfer study. I'm show you. It's your 1 + 1 giving us 2. If it's 1 + 1, then my answer 2. I don't think it's 2. Because automatically when you add 1 to 1, you must get 2.
And the money you sell 1 + 1 and you 2.
No, I mean you said they will look at so many things that the government is doing, especially on your expenditure. Because I'm saying this because, for instance, the World Bank statement be a issue, and let me read it. I say some kind of way for necessary recommendation. Now the recommendation was say, meanwhile, the World Bank wants the government to implement vigorous reforms to strengthen microeconomic frameworks, rebuild buffers. They include debt sustainability, and one of our problems is debt. How about Ghana deficit say is our debt, and the rate are up, and I say jumping. Na kutia ya GDP. Because I come here and say no, say Ghana you never go edwuma ka boso me so na say wadi na katua, wadi mu oham njembe almost 90%. Kutia ka. Now obra we so we use Ghana do almost 90%. Kutia ka. Na another 80% na so kutia ka. Obra no be dabo. Amana yi. Because anya bia na say bitimi ka ho o school fees oba. Akoma ba. O lorry fare fuel, o car fuel maintenance ni that ni number. But if say you are using the huge chunk of your money to pay debt in Goa, you can't survive. But that is the problem, one of the biggest problem of Ghana. Again, they will look at certain policies. Certain policies yes, as you said, they were pro-poor policies. It's good. But the point is, do you have the funds to sustain it for the future? Because as you sit here, one of the problems are buying facing BM a revenue generation. Into what I mean, what Hombanas were control. Such policies no but my sustaining. I'm what Sana and Quadingu. Or some of them need to be, I mean, you say you do away with some of them. Let me give you a country like UK. They don't pay necessary allowance. They were paying it in the past. They've cancelled it. So does it. Because I don't know. I want to put one. I can tell you. I can say, "You come and check what's wrong." I won't go binti. No, so no question won't be. I know what we need. So does it. But there are other professionals. I want to call training schools. Do you see them or do you hear that they are being paid? I mean, training allowance or whatever. Some law schools, some professionals. Are they being paid legal allowances for us? They are being trained as lawyers.
Okay.
So does it. I mean, we can cite. What is good for the goose is as well good for the gander. And it is. the going to the IMF has become a problem because of the past comments that were made by the people in government today. And also, it has become necessary because the country is now running on the shoulders of, debts.
Okay.
Debts.
Medasichum, Kofi. Mamito na menkwajin krato
Mati, the woman say can you know you can say you inquire IMF view IMF nya. It comes from the fact that we believe, or we in the MPP believe that a drum me or say a year Ghana for one say day and she be go akwa be boy yankas.
She said to say
oh, and massive industrialization drive, one district, one factory, making sure we add value to our products, near consuming, near exporting, and or making sure we be a bread basket war, especially Syria, the northern part of our country. Every village will have one dam near the other, making sure we bring development to the people. And this special development initiative in a year, 1 billion for every constituency, 1 billion, I think $1 million at the end of the day, which saw a lot of infrastructure at every corner, the communities, coastal development. But in the midst of this discussion, if we fail to recognize the impact of a global pandemic and its effects on our economy and assume all the time, yes, Ghana near your problems. Yes, we do. Expenditures be not see reduce. Yes, we have to. Now your holes be not see a plug-in. There were cracks in the system. Yes, they are all true. They are true. But we cannot fail to recognize, say, we are where we are because COVID began. And I don't know why we don't want to admit and accept that. It's okay. At the end of the day, on kobe bia ebedi nkomwa. Sebi impenifo atenase. E fa say kwan bens na obesisi osika ya. Omo recognize it. I have read the IMF articles, the board members, directors, some conclusion. Every point they make in the way they recognize the impact of COVID. As a people, as Ghanaians, if we are failing to admit it, it's okay. But I am extremely optimistic that this government, this president, will ensure that we take steps to make Ghana and do pempensua and which change.
Okay. Mama nkwaje aboafo enkrato mra. Na eba samba kwa maybe Kofi ansa na makotwi ho no. And say sa IMF discussion we eba ye ansa na 11 70 passage ne ba amagana for abesha se ajetu. At that point no omo kan ya kosi say ye nuru bra wo se ko IMF and amo se mo di 11 enti na so mo ye 10 wa aji 11 na tum no mafachi ko de akopiem IMF anase na the focus no akasa eyede because I would tell you omo ya na at that point ni nyina no omo nim said the situation man economy ni gina mu no ne bia IMF nkwa na betumi asavage the situation but still na no omo preto nchen ese yenye 11 ma yenya boafo nkrato emra ha aye Adom TV na wotwi dwumadie e na wotie no mama ma wakwa ba na wotwi dwumadie Adom TV e na wo hwe no bedin e de abena pokoa ahwenye na nsa na mekoma bedwafo ho no happy birthday e na enkoma Mr. Isaac Newton oye chief executive officer e de ma Asida Fabrics ena ye wagoda onyame onsha na onye okese wo yire ene wo mano so mo dododo na omoso obade nsemu sha ho den ene nkwatenten e de ma o enjoy your day Mr. Newton mama mra Kofi me say etina mo nim say 11 no enye de panasia na no no enye no ye e de ma the economic crisis na ye wo mu no na mo yire mo ho a chinchim ye sa de hye ye me ne say ye ntua by force ena mo ye na mo se mo kwa ye sanity
that and sanity men drum kra de bia that sanity de tie ne say de di kan me nua ba ma chiro wo me komodie no say aban e wo kwame asaso o gigiska ba ko de ne say ye fa nya adwuma de to so bio ye sika ye gigi ye to ye gigi kakra na wo hwe se de nyoma ekọ ene aban bebi a bruni beka no ba fa sinking fund na opening se tekpeka no yakoyi sika free aboye ho ban se yare ko de wo covid 19 na be hia se aban be nya sika aboye ho bra na wase nya bidi akosi eno no ye ko sika dwaman so a na ebi mba nti na osi ye boye ho modern titi ye mo we mu kakra na ya nkasa gigi free ye ho na ye de mbo man ho bra nti ekofa yi levy bae yi levy ye nuanum ya me lawyer yo tie ni nuama omake twitwa blade or parliament nyina say yi levy de ehene ha nya de beba so omuka che Ghana for say eye krono eye atutubotom den ye ho demonstration eye nipa ho adwuma ne ye enipa ye no so mutua Ghana for dodo na no ohwe statistics ayeba no sika na ne expect say benya free 11 enya no na eba nti na ebe hia say ebe so ye kopia no mu tuo foforo bia betimi de eye emo abre oman no IMF nya bia na say ye ko enya bia ye so da say ebe ko na mo so ye tu anamon a ye ndwen ye nka say ye MPP de ye kan say IMF de sune ye nko obio esan say ye GDC ye say enyoma hihye ye a eni say ye ko IMF but say ebio ya me kan wa hobrasem say COVID by ye na baby na me wa that time and I me feeling COVID ye by the time I COVID said that ye say ye COVID no na ye nyama mampani bia odwen kon kan hear the vision so timi de nhihye egu akwemu a ebo ya ma COVID no Ghana for really didn't feel an impact na me ti ekuro bi so a na omo nti de e America to the extent say the president was saying say e do some the COVID will vaporize e be yira akọ do maybe I see econom detergents. Now you know detergents now COVID in the and this was how bad the system was in that country. But we had a president in Ghana, Otimi the Nyomas Gugu Akwem. So we never saying out America to the extent saying Insuo was even a problem in the United States. Sebi and money any demo toilet roll. Oko shop toilet roll was a problem. Pano baby cry shot to America because of COVID. Did it happen in Ghana? No, it didn't happen. Because we had a government, we had a president, or what foresight. And maybe, Mamdi, Penny can say, Mami can't bro for. I say we know how to bring the economy back to life. What we do not know is to bring people back to life. Okay. Meaning about your kind, say economy back to life, and say economy ne ebe wu, ne wu ye say the ebe nyane no. So baby, I want economy ne wu. We are what he prophesied. Say. New commission or share economy ni bewu no ewu tibiemu na emo na kwen be fa so dia ba no ebi ni say o se yekoyachi na ye fie no ye sakofa bio because IMF is not a place we ever wanted to be. But situation no me
we wo hosa sebreson na ene no the likes of Mr. Makasibe yeboa ne mpanyifo bi even the minority dodo no a and some economists awodo the suggestion mo dem am say woji 11 no enya no ye de ma situation man wo mu na muka said there be ebi kra suggest say mo ko IMF e ma mo twe mo abo so ene no mo de mo go be komo ma na
nye bo ma biasem na me can say we had an expectation say E-levy will give us enough. But
ebi mo so ehun no akire say E-levy no enye the solution. E ma mo twe woma no wo form e say enye no kre.
But they can never be once they had the case. No, of course everybody
but money antum.
Na say enye bibia na obi aka ye ti tum. What I say. And then mami for 30 seconds pe. Me be say etie for any ahwefo ya we say. The idea of government was to ensure say Ghana e betimi aboye ho bra. But amania to you know actually say o see ekojimwa
me da say June ye we are no to final way sana no obe ne tough ama me
ene mani bia kofi kan ya me ne ya aduan say indeed I was also in America around that time and the question na you understand but then do you know the reason why because na we say wutimi mpia bontre it's na man for ko shop be shed dem na ne mpia kwa no ne wo ne fie no di nten na man say so gini ba kese so the all can hear no crap
but na mo American ti mo ho Ghana so ye feel kakra enuane bo be ye dem pagari nyina ne bo ye dem
ne bo di mpo ebi ni wo mpo no nya bia
you see mama can be binchira kutu IMF if the World Bank issued a article be on 28th of June.
Okay.
Now some of them was saying when the debt crisis hits, don't simply blame the pandemic. So what can and most is as one say pejani mua. And found answering COVID. And found answering COVID because say every debt crisis begins with unheeded warnings and end with severe limits on your investments.
Okay. Can you see?
Not to say ebra wo ka esem no ekosoro no wo mo bo like the kokobi ah ye catch us ade we hwani ye ana wontie enti didi wa na se du kopie wa emfa wo ha no problem obi
enti ne kwakra
no say you can't simply blame COVID because of your woes
yeah kofie ka okay
because let me tell you aban we under COVID enya about $5 billion COVID in one time is going on yeah so we say COVID finance minister ko bu akunta tre Kofi na ne me adwene pa say no finance minister say mo kan won na nyabe
meni ne adwene pa
his figures was not even tally the expenditure figure expenditure figure president de maye and the finance minister beka ensia
he explained
and then who is in charge
okay
so minimum say
the speaker of
the minister is more or less an advisor to the president
okay
what advice did you give to the president and the
member of the MPP Kofi Ameyao member of the MPP communication team member now ono ani na lawyer Chumbari my member NDC national communication team 17 ni camp to say
na me adom ekoye pa o say ye wie campaign ton ya bank na me adom na watwe say na na eto aba eto ni esi ahinfo agya to mpeko pese afwe de intim re na so
all my Canada fifth time
lucky
on sada number 5
or that number 5
I mean come on
no more be campaign communication
but enti o me na se ba bibia wo na wo share yen e wa Adom TV etie yen e wo asempa 94.7 eso edi amejeso ene abena pokoa ahwene de kwawo ambassador dam yejare ba bia obi ametu check ese edema ya da wase nyame sha so kan ho na wo twe se ne ye besan edi ese amobi am yakra mu nyina